Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Zenith, that podcast with a space durian, because this week we watched Ultraworld.
Written by Trevor Hoyle.
Directed by Veer Lorimer.
Yeah, he's back.
He's back.
And aired on March 10th, 1980.
This is Trevor Hoyle's only script for the show. Fun fact. This is the only story he writes, although apparently I just saw he writes a novel called Scorpio Attack or Scorpio Rising or something like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Maybe that's something I'll read at one point. Probably not for
Pretty sure
Zenith.
Paul Darrow wrote a book too.
Right, Paul Darrow wrote a book called Avon, a Terrible Aspect, I think? Affect? I don't know. I don't remember.
You know what? I'm going to look it up. I'm just Avon, a Terrible Aspect.
Right, Avon, a Terrible Aspect.
Which he also wrote a book called Lucifer.
Is that related to Blake 7?
And then Lucifer Revelation and Lucifer Genesis. Yes, they're all three are Blake 7 books.
Yeah, I know. The Terrible Aspect one is pretty poorly received. People don't like what he does with Avon's character in that, because it's about Avon. It starts with Avon as a child, and it's basically Avon's origin story.
Yes, well, I'm just reading the wiki page. The first section is titled Avon's First Name. And it says, in the Blake 7 series, Avon's first name is usually given as Kerr with a double R. However, in the novel, it is consistently spelled Kerr with a single R. This is explained as a short form of his full name, Kerguelen? Said to mean desolation. The latter is either a misunderstanding or poetic license on Darrow's part, probably based on the Kerguelen Islands in the southern Indian Ocean, which are sometimes known as Desolation Islands.
Oh boy.
The name Kerguelen is, however, not a direct translation of desolation, but a reference to the discoverer of the archipelago, since the novel consistently uses Kerr with one R. This form is preferred for use in this article. Apparently the book is a prequel to the Blake 7 story, telling Avon's
It's his origin story. Yeah, I know there's something... The conflict in the book is like related to Avon's father and stuff like that. I don't know too much about it. Oh boy. Yeah.
I mean, Blake 7...
Sure most people don't like
this
it.
Is probably a discussion for a later time. Blake 7 is one of those shows that really thrives on the fact that you don't know that much about these characters, in my opinion, before they meet each other.
Sure. And that's something they've actually even played with, right? Where, like, you know, your Villa's introduced as like this sort of... He's this pickpocket. Actually, when he's first introduced in the way back, he's kind of... There's a mean-spiritedness to Villa that is only, I think, in the way back. But really, like, you know, Series A, he's one thing, and then, you know, Series C, he's another, right? He's like this genius who's been hiding his potential and stuff like that. So, you know, maybe getting all this detail about Avon's backstory, which, I mean, I liked the Anna stuff. I thought that all worked well, but, you know, going into, like, this level of detail might be a bad decision.
Do we really need to know about, like, Avon's father? And it's just too much, really, in my opinion. I thought also Paul Darrow wrote a book about Avon set, like, 20 years after the end of the show as well, that reveals what happens to Avon.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, but just knowing what I do about how this show ends, that also
well, I'm pretty sure it
like
mildly retcons the ending, because I know how it ends as well, but I was pretty sure he wrote one set like way after the...
Maybe that's the Lucifer trilogy.
Possibly.
I'm not sure entirely.
Although, I don't know, so...
Anyway, Ultraworld.
Yeah, Ultraworld.
I might as well just bring this up right off the bat, is that, you know, frequent correspondent Argy mentioned last week that Ultraworld is the first episode of Blake 7 that she ever watched, and that's sort of what got her, and Moloch, I think she also said, it's sort of what got her into the series. And I can really see that. Like, if I had watched this as a first episode, you know, just randomly found it or whatever, I'd be like, oh, this is awesome, I gotta watch this whole thing.
And then you'd watch Volcano and be like, damn.
There's so much cool stuff going on in this episode. This almost felt like a Series A episode in, like, the amount of crazy and different ideas that they cram into it. You think of Series A, stuff like the web, right, where they have the Liberator, and it's like it's being attacked by a psychic force, and it's also somewhat alive, and they go into this web, and there's these experiments down on the planet, and those early episodes are all like that. They're just crammed full of all these, you know, to whatever extent they work is up to, like, Terry Nation, basically.
In Series A, huh?
But actually, that's something Terry Nation does as a writer as well. He crams a lot of stuff into his stories.
Well, until he starts to run out of
And still he starts to run out of
steam at the end of the season when there's like one thing per story because he's like, oh shoot, I still got to write like 5 more scripts.
And this episode actually does that as well. Series C, I think, has been great so far. It's probably my favorite series, but the episodes are they're starting to be single-minded, right? They're starting to be about one thing, one idea, and really the same idea of like
Servalan.
Right. I think they've, and I like this, this whole questioning truth thing and reframing all of this stuff that I've talked about more than I probably should have over the last couple of weeks. I like all that, but when all the episodes are about that and they drive it home so much, it starts to get a little old.
Well, that can happen with anything, really.
Yeah. But this episode starts off with really a reversal from what we've seen in the past couple of weeks of they see something on the scanners and Avon's like, all right, we got to go there. And everyone else is like, no, we're not going there.
And Avon's like, well, okay, guess we're not going there then. But then Callie goes into her room and like zones out.
Starts doing some psychic nonsense.
Yeah, she like does something, but then we cut to I guess the next day or later in the day.
Sometime later.
Some time has passed and they get like a distress signal from Callie and they're like, but I thought Callie was in her room. And they're like, nope, turns out she's on the ship. And then they're like, oh, Dana's like teleport coordinates have been changed. And Avon's like, what? And Terrence's like, but why?
We see a blue hand reaching out towards Callie. Mysterious blue hand. Villa is also sort of in the corner joking around with Orak. He's trying to teach Orak jokes.
Yeah, he's trying to teach Orak how the jokes work.
But little as you can't teach an old computer new jokes.
Well, you can, apparently, at the end of the story. I think that's actually the moral of the story, is that you can do that. I'm trying to remember what the first joke he's trying to teach him here is.
I don't remember what it was.
I remember one of them was, what do you give to a guy whose head is full of water? It's like a tap on the head.
Yeah. Norak picks it apart and explains it, and he's like, "Oh, it's funny because this, that, and the other." It's wordplay,
like
and it's double meaning. So.
It's like how when you explain a joke, you ruin it. It's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
That be how it do. I did not intentionally mess that sentence up. And so, yeah.
They see the thing, they don't know what it is yet, on the scanners, and it's massive.
Well, this is the distress call from Callie coming from it.
And Avon's like, it looks like an artificial planet to me. And Dana actually, this episode has a lot for Dana in it.
Dana and Tarrant.
Yeah. And this is actually good coming off sort of this Callie episode.
Yeah, Callie is the first one put out of commission in this episode.
Which I was totally okay with.
She is the gang character.
I was totally okay with that because Sarcophagus was all her episode. Even though she is out of, like we mentioned before, it's kind of weird that that's her episode when she's out of commission, but yeah.
Well, because she is the driving force behind that plot, like we said last week with Archie.
And this is all Dana and Tarrant, which is great. They really haven't been in the spotlight as much as they should have,
I think. They get some chemistry later on.
Yeah.
Whether forced or not.
Yeah, there's that Avon and Villa, or not Avon
and Villa chemistry.
There was that Avon and Callie stuff last week, and now there's the Tara. God, what am I saying? Tarrant Dana stuff.
Wow, poor Villa, really.
Well, there's Villa and Orak.
Great. That's the romance we all so sorely deserved. Villa and Orak. Forever.
It's the romance we need, but not the one we deserve.
I was just thinking about this because I want to bring this up now because I'll forget to bring it up later, but you were talking about how Series C is different because, Villa's all of a sudden the super genius, or all of a sudden we find out that Callie was exiled and it wasn't a self-imposed exile. And I think that could potentially play into this theory that you made up on the spot during Series A, that all the characters are just how Blake sees them.
Right.
But Series C could be possibly all the characters are portrayed the way Avon sees them. Avon possibly sees Villa actually as the super genius, or he sees Callie as a threat because she was actually exiled or whatever.
Maybe.
That possibly might explain why these backstories are coming out now, because now we're seeing it from Avon's point of view rather than Blake's, and Avon possibly knows more and knew more.
Right, and here that's actually interesting because I think I brought this up in Rumors of Death, is how, in Series A and B, the Federation's still pretty strong. They have this sort of centralized knowledge bank of some sort that God, what am I saying today? That Orak is able to tap into, right? He's able to tap into their computers. and get information. And they really have a monopoly on information and the truth, really. Mm-hmm. And in Series C, that's all decentralized, it's destabilized, because the Federation doesn't really exist in the same way they did before. So, maybe this is just the characters as they, all are, right? Like, we get this information that, Callie isn't really like this great person that we thought she was. Villa isn't really this bumbling idiot. He's actually a genius and the smartest one among them. So maybe it's among the Liberator crew, it's Blake who had this sort of monopoly on really who these people were and what we saw on the show. And now that he's gone, that's not there anymore.
Possibly, but it's interesting to note in the story that the Federation seems to be coming back, right? Because Tarrant refers to it as Serverland's empire.
Yeah, they're coming back, I think. I did make note of that line there. Seems to be, if Tarrant's right, they're coming back in full force.
Right, possibly stronger than before because they're no longer a Federation. They're apparently an empire now.
Well, I think that's just a term he threw out, like Serverland's empire. I think possibly. They're still called the Federation.
We don't know, though, because they only refer to it as Serverland's empire in this.
Sure.
This is the most up-to-date information we have.
This is cutting edge,
straight out of Terrance's mouth. Del
and
Tarrant.
That would actually be a really interesting twist if they brought the Federation back as an empire.
Right.
This is like a Rome, like Republic to Empire type thing.
Well, that was just Julius Caesar surreptitiously seizing power. Not really surreptitious, but Julius Caesar seizing power.
Right.
In weirdly much the same way that Hitler would, like hundreds of years later. History repeats itself. The only thing we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history.
So they go down to whatever this thing is. It looked like a durian to me. I don't know why I made that connection.
Well, it looked like, man, when I saw it, I instantly knew what it looked like. And this was like 3 hours ago. And then and now I've completely forgot. Oh, that's what it looks like. I remember now. I was going to say I completely forgot, but I remember now. It looks like Spaceship Earth at Walt Disney World. At the Epcot Center. The big white globe.
But it's more spiky.
Spaceship Earth is pretty spiky.
Maybe I'm not remembering how it looks correctly, but yeah.
Spaceship Earth is it's pretty spiky.
Anyway, they go down there inside.
Well, everyone except for Villa and Aurak.
Dana actually makes this comment. She's like, well, just look at the surface of that thing. Nobody could live on that. So it can't be an artificial planet. And Avon's like, not on it, but in it.
Yeah. So,
which really makes you question, like, how this thing all works. Like, I guess it's just levels, like, floors just inside.
Well, see, this is the other thing.
Or are they, like, inside? Are they walking on the inside of the sphere?
Okay, I always have the same thought about the Death Star. But I have it about this, too, because
Death Star is, like... The Death Star has levels, I think.
But this is the thing. This is what I'm always wondering. Are they, like, flat levels that go bottom to top? Or are they, like, spherical shaped levels that radiate outwards? Because this and the Death Star are big enough to have their own gravitational pull. So if you have like flat levels, you could go to the edge of the level and you'll be pulled sideways by the gravity. Like, you'll be pulled sideways towards the center. But we never see any indication that it's like a spherical level. So I'm forced to assume it's a flat one where everyone gets pulled towards the center near the edges.
Well, I mean, that doesn't happen obviously on screen because they don't follow like the actual like laws or whatever.
Well, yes.
But here's the thing also is like, I don't know how big this is, but you think of the Death Star and that's probably big enough that if it was like a spherical thing, you wouldn't like, you could just see, it would just be like Earth, right? You just see people walking on it and it doesn't look like a sphere.
It's big, yeah, flat. It's big enough that they mistake it for a moon, so.
Yeah. So, you just see like, you're zoomed in on like, two people walking down a corridor. You're not necessarily going to see the curvature. Of it.
They give a pretty good sense of the scale of the Death Star in Rogue One, and it's pretty big.
Yeah, we don't really know how big this is, but it's a lot. I mean, we see like when
we
the
see
Liberator
it in comparison to the Liberator, and we know the Liberator is massive.
It's planet-sized at least, but
I mean,
it's actually
gravitational pull. Yeah. That's one of the things that Blake 7 never actually mentions is gravity. Like, they all go onto these ships and they never mention, like, the artificial gravity or whatever.
Except when What's-His-Face was making, like, this gravity machine to control the universe or whatever his stupid plan was.
Yeah, well, remember, you control gravity, you control the universe. That was in Shadow 2.0.
It was in Dawn of the Gods.
Shadow 2.0. So they all beam down except for Villa and Aurak, and they're looking for Callie. And almost instantly, Avon gets caught.
Yeah, this is weird. They run through the corridors. They see a map of the place. And Avon mentions that it looks exactly like computer circuitry, and they're like, oh, we're in a giant computer. The entire thing is a giant computer. But here's the thing. In this scene, they're being super not careful. They're running around corridors making all sorts of noise and stuff like that. And I was like, is that really a good decision?
It reminds me of... Was it Shadow? The one where Gan is put on guard and then he gets captured. They're like, did you really think that... did you think this is the best person to put on guard? Yeah, they're running around and Avon gets basically immediately captured.
Yeah, I think we actually have... This isn't like a perfect segue into this, I guess, but we actually have some new costumes for them, I think. Avon's wearing this brown corduroy thing. And they're all sort of wearing...
Dana's is like maroony colored, maroon burgundy.
Right.
She's still got the necklace. I think Tarot's still wearing Blake's leftovers.
Not wearing those giant shoulder pad outfit type things that they were in.
He's still got the massive sleeves, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So they get captured by...
The Ultras, I think.
Yeah, they're called the Ultras.
And this is Ultraworld.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a Terry Nation, isn't it, if I ever heard one?
And they bring them into this room where they have these memory banks, and they explain what's going on here. So Ultraworld is a giant computer. They're trying to store all the information that they possibly can. And they have this, we don't learn about this yet, but there's this centralized location called the core that runs all of this.
And we don't know what the core is exactly yet, but what we do learn, I think, now is that
Ultraworld is somehow alive.
Yeah. That the core is alive, and they capture aliens, merge their consciousness with the core, and that's all we know at this point.
Right.
And they said they've encountered, I think they say, millions of alien species.
Yeah, and they
which really calls into question where Ultraworld is from.
They must just drive it around.
Because how many species have we encountered in Blake 7? You can count them on one hand.
Yeah, I mean...
There's the humans, there's the Pyroans or whatever the hell they were in Volcano.
I think it's like...
Callie species.
I think it's 10 to 15, probably in that range.
They all look like humans, though.
Almost all of them. The Decimas, maybe not so much. The thing from Trial, possibly not so much.
But again, they've encountered millions.
Yeah.
Millions.
I mean, they're flying around outside the galaxy.
They were flying around.
For sure.
They were flying around.
Until they met Kerr Avon.
And not even Kerr Avon, until they met Villa Restal.
And this isn't a new concept for Blake 7, because I think it's Dana actually who pulls Avon aside and is like, a living planet, is that possible? And I was like, well, in some capacity, real, world planets are living. But also we've seen organic ships, at least on Blake 7. The Liberator is somehow somewhat alive in some capacity. There's Zen.
Who's telepathic, if you'll remember that.
There was another good example, but I'm completely blanking on what it is now. Oh, well.
I'm not remembering. Yeah, I'm not remembering.
Actually, either. Yeah, the one from Trial.
Ah, right. And, well, I guess because they're not really sure what alive means in this context. And it's not until they see the big brain that is the core till they're like, oh, that kind of alive.
I made the Durian connection when I first saw it, which, heck if I know why that was the case, because I barely even... Durians are, not even on my radar. But, maybe it is a big fruit with a brain.
Fruit don't have brains.
But maybe this one does. And maybe they just built it out into a computer inside or something, and they're, leveraging its power or something like that.
How big was the brain to start with? How big was the fruit to start with?
There's this line from Dana later, the brain's expanding. It's growing
the brain gets bigger every time they put someone's consciousness into it.
Yeah.
By the way, Callie gets completely dumpstered. Her consciousness gets put into the core and she's wiped. She's just gone now. By the way, she's just an empty husk.
They bring it back, and Avon's as well.
Yeah.
You didn't...
I know they bring him back. Just
trust me, they're going to be the same exact characters.
Well, of course they will. Of course they will. But I was just so bummed that they got this actual devastating fate, and then they just immediately undid it 5 seconds later.
Well, we've talked about the Blake Seven and how Blake Seven is similar to a sitcom.
Sitcoms have no consequences.
But and in some sense, it really is. Things just return to the status quo almost every single week. There are big turning points like Gant's death, and the series finales and stuff like that.
And the war at the end of Series B.
Really, for most of these episodes, it's just things go back to how they were before at the end. Mm-hmm. Maybe a few casualties here and there along the way.
Yeah, and even when someone lands up on the Liberator at the end of the story, next week they're gone, and it's back to business as usual. And they never even mention where the hell they dropped these people off at.
Right.
They're just gone.
Right.
So it's just business as usual. This event, in fact, will probably never get mentioned again. Like last week, we were so surprised that they even mentioned that Callie couldn't even go back to her homeworld because of what happened to it, and that was like a shock.
Yeah.
I was just bummed that they were like. At first, I was like, I applaud the balls of this show to go so far as to actually wipe Callie's mind and wipe her entire personality. I was like, okay, that takes a lot of moxie to do. But then Dana was like, so it's reversible, right? And the Ultras are like, yeah, it's reversible.
Yes.
And I was like,
but I mean, you think about like Rumors of Death. We were completely shocked that they even brought the stuff with Anna back.
Well, that's because it was shocking.
Yeah.
It was hugely shocking. I mean, and maybe that was the point, is that you were in this false sense of security. Not security, but you were lulled into this idea that they never bring anything back, and all of a sudden it's like, surprise, it's Anna. Or surprise, it's Callie's homeworld, which I don't... Auron. It's surprise, it's Auron.
Maybe, yeah.
Surprise, they're actually mind wiped next week. Yeah, right, as if.
So, or they actually are. That would have been even more shocking, as if they actually had mixed up Avon and Callie. And they're not, because we get them after they come back at the end of the episode.
That's such a classic like sci-fi plot, though.
Really?
Mixing up the personality of two peoples. You ever watch Freaky Friday? I used to watch.
Yeah, I have actually. But that's a remake. Well, I mean.
Of another movie.
I mean, when you say Freaky Friday, I think about the one that came out when we were kids, which is a remake of the original Freaky Friday.
The one with was it Lindsay Lohan?
Yeah, it was Lindsay Lohan.
Wow, her career really fell off the map.
But that movie is a remake of like a movie from the 70s or 80s.
Probably also called Freaky Friday.
Yeah, it was also called Freaky Friday.
Like
which, if you don't know what that is, it's about this girl who switches
mom, I think,
and her mom who like switch minds for a day, and they're at each other's throats all the time, and they live like a day in each other's shoes, and at the end they reconcile.
Yeah, but that's like a classic sci-fi thing, or a classic like body horror thing, swapping consciousness. That's
I guess.
a classic staple, I guess, of the genre.
I mean, we've talked about how foundational Frankenstein is for horror and science fiction on this podcast before. And that's really the thing. It kind of goes back to that, right? Of this guy waking up in an unfamiliar body. Like, the creature wakes up and you're like, whoa, what the heck is it? Who am I? What is this?
Right.
And I think that's somehow related to the switching minds thing.
Yeah. They don't switch minds, though. Dana and Taryn get captured as well.
Well, but they know the Ultras. God.
Sounds really absurd.
It's like the supers from The Incredibles.
Yeah, but except that kind of made sense.
Yeah. They knew the Ultras are up to no good. And when they get put into custody, I think, or maybe it's right now, I don't remember, but Dana's like, are we just going to trust them? Or are we just going to, take their word that they're just going to, that they're just peaceful or whatever? And Avon has this line, which is, I don't take anything on trust. And I really like that line. And I wrote it down. That's all I want to say about it.
I forgot to mention, are some of Aurak's lights broken? There was a close-up on Aurak at the start of the episode. It looked like some of the lights weren't going on.
Wouldn't be surprised. Now that you bring that up, let's just touch on this now. The Liberator bracelets in this episode. One of the Ultras crushes a Liberator bracelet.
Mm-hmm. Well, they crushed two of them.
Or a teleport bracelet. Well, they crushed three because one of the Ultras crushes one in his hand, and one of the menials steps on two of them.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, in the story, in universe, this is supposed to be an amazing thing, right? Like, this guy's super strong. He can just crush the teleport bracelet with his bare hands. But like, when you think about how this is made, it's like just cardboard and some plastic.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was effective.
I did too.
Especially when they crush it with their
funny.
feet and you can't really see the fact that it's cardboard because the feet obstruct it.
Well, I mean, that was fine, but like when the Ultra crushes it with his hands, I did get the impression like, wow, this guy actually has super strength because he can just crush this thing with his bare hands.
Yeah.
But then you're like, it was also kind of funny because of just what it was.
So at some point, Avon gets captured, and Dana and Tarrant find out what they use the wiped bodies for. They see these menials shoveling, I guess, quite literally, other bodies just into this like furnace-like object they have. And I think it's Dana says, oh, they're using the bodies as like food for the core.
Yeah.
They're like feeding the core. So they're feeding the core not only mentally by putting people's consciousness into it, but also physically. And so that's when Dana and Terrence are like, well, we're going to have to get Callie and Avon out of this somehow. Also, when Avon gets captured, he calls Villa and he's like, hey, I told you to be on alert. And he's like, I'm right here. And Avon's like, all right, teleport us all up in a second. I think something's going weird. It's going down. And immediately, as soon as he said that, he just gets conked on the head by one of the Ultras. And Villa's like, hello? Hello? Goodbye.
By the Blue Man Group?
Yeah, by the Blue Man Group. And Villa then goes back to teaching Aurak about
humor. Quote unquote humor. I forget what, Villa's jokes are just deteriorating throughout the episode. I forget what.
Well, by the end, he's just doing tongue twisters.
Yeah.
Sally sells seashells by the seaside or something like that.
There's the Miss Perkins eats gherkins and some, I forget what it actually is, but.
Yeah, and pickled her insides.
Or pickled her inner workings or something. I forget.
And then there's how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. That's a classic. So basically Dana and Tarrant are running through some corridors and the Ultras are like, we got them on the run.
But it all looks pretty good.
We could use them for some experiments.
They're running through corridors and they're like, can't stay in one place for too long or they'll find us. And then you just zoom out to security camera footage of them.
Well, she puts a gun to the menial's back and then she sneezes. Dana, that is. And then he just turns around and looks at her and she's like, Yeah,
they go into this room. This is all taking place in this room that's, I guess, is a cold storage for the bodies that they're keeping.
Something like that.
And I don't think they ever actually explicitly say that, but they go into this, freezing room. They go in and they're like, it's freezing cold in here. And the menials, their minds are completely drained. The guy doesn't even react to having a gun in his face.
Yeah. So they think this is kind of weird, but then they get captured. I think in that room because they're looking at this menial.
Ever since Maurice's email, I'm never not going to, notice when we say weird.
Well, so they get captured, and then the Ultras are like, we need to know the human mating ritual. And they're like, wait, what? Like, the human bonding ritual, they call it.
Right.
And Dana and Terrence are like, wait, what? And they're like, we need to know the human bonding ritual for the core. It's something we don't have. It's data we don't have.
This is like Macross. I don't know if you've heard of Macross, but Macross is this really famous, and I really don't like it. It's this really famous anime series from the early 80s, and the aliens that they're fighting in that, they've gotten rid of, they're kind of like Spartans. They've gotten rid of everything that doesn't have to do with war, and they see these two, the main character and the love interest kissing, and they're like, oh! And that completely freaks them out, and they're like, what is this? And that blows their minds, and yeah. This predates that, I think.
I have no comment on that, actually. Legitimately no comment.
But they're like, yeah, we need to record the
bonding ritual.
The bonding ritual.
And then Dana lays down the terms. She's like, well, we want Callie and Avon reversed, and then we want to know if we can be set free. And they're like, well, that's for the core to decide. Dana's like, well, I think we should just take their offer. And I'm like, wait, what? Is Dana just going to sleep with Tarrant right here on camera? It's a good plan here. But then it's revealed that Dana has a bomb in her mouth.
She carries a bomb under her tongue. That's what I got out of it. Just a tiny bomb.
Yeah, they're making out. They're doing some heavy petting on the bed. And then the Ultras are like, has the bonding ritual started? And Dana's like, well, it'll be a lot easier without interruptions. And this camera just lowers from the ceiling. I'm like, man, this would be the most awkward thing in existence. basically being forced to have sex with what is in essence your co-worker at this point in a laboratory setting on camera. No, they seem to be taking it in stride, so maybe there is something actually there.
Here's the thing about this little, bomb that Dana pulls out of her mouth. Was there actually anything she was holding in her hands? Because I think she just sort of reached into her mouth and had her thumb and forefinger pressed together, and she's like, "Don't worry, Taryn, I have this." And there's not actually like a prop for it.
I didn't see anything there in her fingers. I imagined it was just like a little ball bearing of some sort that was like a small little ball. That was what I imagined it as, but there's no prop in her fingers that you can tell.
If there's an actual prop, it's not. You can't see, based on the quality of the episode, and we're watching it on YouTube, so quality's not going to be great either way. But I don't think there was actually a prop, and she sort of just throws it over into the corner and blows up the
wall.
A wall.
Well, Tarrant says something.
This thing is powerful, man, for like the size of it.
It has a 10-second timer. It's really unclear what actually triggers it. If like making out for 5 minutes is what is required to trigger this bomb.
I don't think so. I think she just pulls it out and just. I think it's just like, well, this is just speculation from this point on in terms of this, but I think it's just pressure or something, right? Because you think it's just like she keeps this in her mouth in case she has to bite down on it and blow something up.
Her head?
Well, herself, in case she's put into a situation where she has to blow herself up.
Why wouldn't you just take cyanide? Why would you go through the...
Yeah, take your enemies out with you. Take your enemies out with you.
But I wouldn't want my head to be blown off in this. I want to just bite down and just go, like, peacefully. I don't want to be waiting in anticipation for this bomb to go off in my head.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't. You'd bite down on the cyanide, and that would take longer than just the instant explosion.
Except it has a 10-second timer, so actually it would be a 10-second explosion, whereas the cyanide would be pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, 10 seconds, give or take. Like, I think even the cyanide would take longer than that, but hey.
I guess, but at least you're not going to have a painful explosion in your head, because you will feel at least the first millisecond of that explosion.
Yeah, but look on the bright side.
What's the bright side here?
You'll be gone. You'll be dead, so you won't have to deal with it. Plus, you can take out your enemies with you, which is what Dana's all about.
Dana uses her little remote control mouse car earlier when Tarrant gets cornered and it comes wheeling in, and it makes this huge explosion, and I was really confused about the staging of the scene, because it does this huge like smoke explosion. But like the way the scene is shot, it looks like Tarrant is standing like 3 feet from the Ultras, but then it like cuts to Tarrant and there's no smoke on his screen at all. And I'm like, how the hell? And how close was Tarrant standing to this bomb that went off that it like knocked out the Ultras but had no effect on Tarrant at all? Anyway.
No, we didn't mention that the Ultras decide that Avon and Dana's minds are going to be drained. But
Callie. Or Tarrant.
Dana as well. They talk about they're talking about Dana.
They're talking about Dana and Tarrant.
They're talking about Dana and Tarrant, and they say like, yeah, when we capture Dana, bring her in with Avon so that we can drain their minds. Tarrant will make a good menial.
Yeah, right. Then they also draw in the Liberator at this point because they're like, oh, there's one more person on the ship whose mind we can drain.
But then they say, like, according to the information in Callie's mind, he's not going to be a threat and he's, like, no use to us or something
Really
like
makes
that.
you wonder why they don't have the human bonding ritual in Avon's mind, considering him and Anna seem to be pretty close.
And considering the extent to which you're supposed to, like, believe, like, they have millions of species and they presumably know something about humans, but they don't have the bonding ritual.
Or maybe Avon's wearing black leather and his bonding rituals at his head, and they got a really weird perception of what a human bonding ritual is like that involves whips and sadomasochism.
This isn't actually, like, in the story, by the way. I mean, we just
like playing up the fact that Avon wore that leather outfit that one time.
There's no indication, and I actually saw something on Making Blake 7 a couple weeks ago about how Paul Darrow was like, I used to get, fan mail from people who are into BDSM and stuff like that.
I'm glad we're not the only ones who picked up on this, at least.
But it's not in the show. Just want to make that perfectly clear. It's not on screen.
I'm gonna. My entire life goal now is to get the license to write a book for Blake 7, and I'm just gonna slip in one of the paragraphs just a completely out of context line about how like Avon liked BDSM or something. Just slip it in there, and then it'll become official Blake 7 canon.
Put it in at the beginning of the story. Just have it be like
the opening line.
Avon casually strolled out of his BDSM chamber.
The opening line. Avon put down the whip.
It wasn't.
Opened the door to his BDSM chamber.
It wasn't every day that Avon was excited to step out of his BDSM chamber, but the Liberator.
We're terrible. We're terrible people.
Scanners were picking up something very interesting. It's my opening line in my Blake 7 book.
Oh, we're terrible. How did Anna put up with that? In this fictional universe we've constructed, I mean.
I'll think of something.
Or maybe she's the one doing the whipping.
Maybe she's the one who initiated it. Who knows?
She's the one who revealed to Avon that he has this fetish. We're getting very far off topic here.
Yeah, we are.
Dana and Tarrant escape through this hole in the wall. Maybe Dana and Tarrant have an exhibitionism fetish, but anyway. They escape through this hole in the wall.
All the things that we're just reading into the story. But yeah, they escape. They run around for a little bit. And they encounter, I think this is actually earlier than we didn't mention it, but they encounter the core, which is a giant brain.
They do encounter it earlier, but they do encounter it again because they see it kind of hemorrhaging.
Yeah, this thing,
black liquid.
This thing kind of gave me a headache just seeing it because it's a massive brain. It looks really good by Blake 7 standards and just
by general standards.
By general standards, I think it looks really good, and it's pulsing. It's it's just pulsing, and it looks painful.
And there's a sound effect that goes along with it,
right?
That I thought was really good. And I really liked the model work on the Liberator. Yeah. When it gets drawn into Ultraworld, and then when it's escaping, there's this really good model shot of it, like twisting out of its restraints and flying away, that I thought was really well done. Yeah,
the sound effect, the sound of this story is really good, both the sound effects and the music, I think. And when the Liberator's sort of turning, you hear this groaning of the restraints, and that's pretty great, I think. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did. No, I did. Yeah. And I agree, it's really good. I was just thinking, because I also wanted to mention they don't really have a sound effect for the mind wiping, but the one that they did use I thought was also really good. And I thought actually the all the sets on Ultraworld too, like the control room, I really liked.
Yeah. I think visually, auditorily, this is all really good.
The set they were using for the bonding ritual looked to me like a redress of the
cold storage type thing.
Of the cold storage, but also a redress of the ship set in the one with Colin Baker.
City at the Edge of the World.
City at the Edge of the World. The ship that Avon and what's her name are on. It looked like a redress of that set to me. I mean,
anyway. had to have completely different lighting because this is kind of a dark room, whereas that was a bright, silvery room.
Just reminded me of it.
Maybe. Wouldn't be surprised, honestly, with how much
based on Blake's propensity for reusing sets.
Well, how much they needed to as well, or needed to save wherever they could. That is.
Yeah. So on the Liberator, Villa is going mad because he's running out of things to tell Aurak.
He's running out of comedy gold, and now he has to scale down to like comedy silver.
Comedy bronze.
I'm pretty sure he's running on like comedy flint to begin with.
Where did Flint come into this hierarchy? What's between bronze and Flint?
A lot of other stuff, probably.
Well, like what?
I don't know.
It's like when it's like comedy pyrite. It's like when we did our leather anniversary for Trust Your Doctor, the wood anniversary. Oh man! But basically, Avon and Callie get the thing reversed by Dana and Tarrant, and they watch as the brain's kind of exploding, so they run, and because they don't have the teleporter bracelets anymore, but Dana's like, or Tarrant's like, oh, the Liberator's brought here, so we can just go get on it.
And the brain is oozing this green liquid.
Yeah, this greeny black liquid.
All the menials have just frozen.
And the Ultras are like, oh shoot, the brain is exploding. If it blows up, we'll have nothing. And they go into the Liberator, and they fly away, and then there's this scene now where Avon's just like, wow, can't believe we escaped. And Villa's like, yep, it was all me.
Oh, yeah, I do remember the scene you're talking about now. I said, because we just finished recording Trust Your Doctor, or Doctor
which will have gone out 2 days before this.
And I said I didn't remember the scene where Aurak explains everything.
Yeah, but Villa's like, just ask Aurak.
When you said it, then I was like, I thought you meant explain, like, from second one to the end of the episode, he explains it all. But no, he actually
explains the resolution.
Yeah.
Because the resolution is really unclear, but then Aurak explains it, I guess because it was unclear. And he basically says, oh yeah, Villa was spewing nonsense at the brain, which distracted it, which allowed me to reflect its own brainwaves back at the core, back at it, so that it wiped itself. Haha.
Right.
They're like, haha, good job, Aurak. Then Villa's like, what? I was just a distraction. And then Avon's like, you should take that as a compliment, Villa. It means that a normal, logical course of action is too much for you, Villa. And he's like, oh, right. Hey, wait a minute. And then we just see Avon give this sly smile, and then we actually get a shot of the Liberator flying before it ends, interestingly. And that's the end of Ultraworld.
Yep, it was a really good story. Like I mentioned before, this might be, based on what I kind of know about how Series C goes, like the finale of it and the episodes that are coming up, the tail end of Series C, which is often called, one of the best parts of Blake 7 overall, is these sort of tail end episodes of Series C. This might be Series C's sort of the keeper moment, right, where it's a callback to an earlier style of episode near the end of the season.
Right before the season ends.
Right before the shit hits the fan.
Well, so I only know one thing about the end of this season, so I don't know if I can comment on that too much, because I don't know anything about any of the episodes between now and the final, 5 seconds of the season, so I can't comment on that too much right now.
We should do our What Would Blake Do?
Yes. I forgot to mention mine. Mine was when Avon gets captured, Blake would have just given in right then and there, because Avon actually puts up quite a fight, and they take quite a while to crack Avon's mental conditioning. And my What Would Blake Do moment is, well, number one, he would have been the first caught. He would have been caught much sooner than Avon, but when he was caught, he would have had no mental fortitude to give in, would have just given in immediately, because part of the reason why Avon's resistance is so important is because it's the reason why the Ultras are like, man, we really got to capture Dana and Tarrant, because maybe we can crack Avon if we get Dana and Tarrant.
Sure. Mine was that Blake wouldn't put up with Villa's jokes as much as Aurak does. He wouldn't be taking any of that.
Well, because when Blake was head,
Blake ran a tight ship,
Did he?
No, he didn't.
Blake ran the opposite of a tight ship. Loose lips sink ships. Yeah, I think that's a good one. But he didn't really run a tight ship, but he didn't have to put up with Villa's nonsense either, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't have much to say about this episode. I just really liked it. I just think it was really solid.
I thought it was solid. I don't actually have much to say about it either. I can see the body horror elements of this episode with your mind is wiped and then you just become a menial, or you just get fed to the core. And I liked that. I think that was good and risky for a television program, at least in the 70s.
I think Blake 7 has gone darker.
Definitely, but it's never been this explicitly body horror. I think it's dealt with darker concepts, it's had a war and genocide and chemical warfare and mind control, but this is your mind is wiped and then your body just gets used without your control.
I guess there is actually one line from Dana that I wanted to bring up. I forget what she says this in response to, but she says we have to believe if we hope to survive.
I don't remember that.
This made me remember one of Hal's last lines in Aftermath, which is that Servalan's describing how he was branded as a traitor and a coward, and after he fled and everything like that, and he says that might have been true, I've never been sure. So his daughter, Dana, this father and son duo,
daughter.
God, what am I saying this episode? Every single character's name I've gotten wrong. I've called, oh God. Right, this daughter and father duo are at complete opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Dana says Dana has to believe if she hopes to survive or whatever,
right.
But, I don't think that's really followed up on in the episode all that much, or at least I didn't notice if it was.
Well, I had a quote from Dana that I want to mention, too. She says, I'm too young to be absorbed. Which I only wanted to bring up because I was like, that's kind of it's a jab in Tarrant's face, because she says it to Tarrant, and he's like, we gotta go, and she's like, yeah, I'm too young to be absorbed. He's like, okay. Tarrant is...
Well, that's just one of those. It's just I'm too young to die type of thing. It's just one of those type of things.
Except, in reality, she's not that young. She's a teenager, but
I wouldn't.
In the context of this joke, but
yeah.
When someone says, "I'm too young to die," it's like you're a kid. Or it's said as like an ironic thing when you're like in your mid-30s. You're like, I'm too young to die.
Mid-30s is too young to die.
Yeah, mid-30s is too young to die. But she's like teenager years, which to me is like in the weird gray area between the two people who typically say that line, is what I'm getting at here.
I wouldn't think about it all that much.
Yeah, well, I thought about it when I heard it, and I was like, yeah, Dana, you're in that weird gray area.
You're in that weird gray area where it's okay to die.
You're in that weird gray area. No, but if you look at the like death statistics, there is like a sudden like dip in like the what is it? It's the number of deaths per capita per age, and there's like a sudden like I think it's a spike at a certain age or a dip at a certain age in your teenage years. And I remember reading the explanation for it, but I don't remember it now.
Huh? It's weird.
Anyway, that's all I have to say on this.
Yeah, that's it for me.
We do have a part of an email to respond to. RG emailed us a combo email about both this and next week's episode, Moloch. So we're just going to read and respond to the part about Ultraworld, and then next week we'll respond to the part about Moloch, because we thought that was the best way to do this.
Yep.
Hi, companions. I have some thoughts about these two episodes. Ultraworld. This was the first episode of Blake 7 that I remember watching. I found the bit where Callie was on the moving platform about to be absorbed by the brain quite disturbing. There were a lot of things I liked about the episode, but in particular, Dana and Tarrant performing the, quote, mating ritual, unquote, especially the part where they count down before throwing the bomb. Some see the scene as hinting that they have actually had sex, but I don't see it that way. No one can break Avon. No, wait, they do. I enjoyed Vela ranting to Aurak. The brain itself looked really good, I thought. How many times did the team go running down corridors in this? Every 5 seconds they were running down along another one. Did you notice that one of the managers of Ultraworld did not have a shaved head? The actor refused to do it. The other two look much cooler with theirs shaved from making Blake 7.
Yeah, I did notice that, actually.
I didn't actually notice that, surprisingly.
Yeah, one of them has
his hair
ring, like he's bald, but
he's balding.
Yeah, balding. He has a sort of ring, and yeah, the ones with the shaved heads do look much cooler. Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything you said, RG. Yeah, in terms of the ritual, I didn't see that as a hint that there was anything going on between Dana and Tarrant.
Yeah, if anything, I see their willingness to do it as just a hint that there may be some actual attraction between them, and that it wasn't just a ploy, but I didn't see any hints of them actually having sex or anything, especially since all their clothes are still on at the end of the scene.
I mean, I think the idea is that they have had before this, which, and yeah, I think the brain looked really good, like we mentioned before.
New theory proposal right here, RG. I know you didn't see a problem with Dana and Tarrant in Volcano. New theory, is that possibly because this episode was a very Dana and Tarrant episode, and this is the first episode of Blake 7 you ever watched?
That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see a problem with Dana and Tarrant here either. And that might be because, we've gotten less of them, I think, than I would have liked.
But also they've been established.
Also they've been established. Also, this is just a better episode than Volcano.
Yes, well, what isn't a better episode than Volcano is the real question.
Aurak. I still think Aurak is the worst episode of Blake 7.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like the only one that I would actually call a bad episode.
Terry. We also have an email from our other correspondent, Maurice. He says, subject Zenith feedback, hello. It says hello, like I think I say hello in the beginning, but written out in text. It says something like, hello. Okay, a quick note, because I'm in the middle of moving. Zenith35, glad you had RG on. Nice to have a female voice on the show. Really enjoyed that. Contrary to the popular myth Dylan cited, hair and fingernails do not continue to grow after death. They just seem to, because the skin around them retracts as it becomes dehydrated, making them appear longer, hence the idea that they grow. Fair point. Thanks for the correction.
No, about any of that, so yeah.
Zenith33, the show notes 33 say you can Google Blake 7 scripts and find them. I did. Here's the script for Dawn of the Gods. It's spelled Herculaneum, Herculanium. I hasten to point out that what you've linked to is not in fact a TV shooting script, but a mere dialogue transcript, and that you can't mine that for any inside information like spellings of terms. Right, because if you remember Maurice's last email, he talked about Herculaneum being spelled IUM or EUM, and that would change maybe if it's a reference to a city or not. So we still don't know is the verdict there. Cheers, Maurice.
Yeah.
Thanks for the email, Maurice.
Yep.
And yeah, that concludes our emails for this week. You can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Ultraworld. Please email us. We always love reading emails. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Zenith, a Blake 7 podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Moloch. But until then, the end.